Welcome to the MetaView podcast, a podcast where we ask people shit and they answer. Let's get into it.
Do you believe it's morning? I'm alive, but that's the last thing on my mind. Do you believe it's morning? I'm alive, but that's the last thing on my mind.
Welcome to MetaView podcast.
Thanks for having me. This is cool. It's been a while since I've been on a podcast.
And it was about time to get you on one.
Cool. I'm glad to be here.
So I want to talk to you about things like onboarding people to onboarding developers, to be more specific. I believe the people will adopt to the things that we build, but it's more important to focus on the developer adoption. So you got a bunch of things going. For example, the scaffolding. Yeah, I don't know if I need to be more specific to question, but I would love to get you talking about developer adoption. How do we get people from developing on Web2 to developing on Ethereum?
Yeah, I think that there is kind of a natural transition. I'm specifically looking for Web2 developers that are interested in Web3, and I think there's kind of a new wave of them kind of shifting in, which is really, really great for Ethereum. But I think that developer adoption is going to probably be many different things, right? Like we need better tools. We need better marketing, I guess. It seems like this new wave of developers coming in might be because of the price stuff that was happening and DeFi and stuff like that seems to be pulling developers in. But once they get here, it's about having great tools for them. It's about kind of being able to show them what we've been calling the tour of duty, which is a good way to kind of get context in the space, understand not just what tokens are and how contracts can talk to each other and the cool stuff and how it's all decentralized, but I think also getting a context for what's cool and what will fit in the space and what's needed. And a lot of times when you build a project, you're like, I'm going to go build this awesome thing. And once you start working on this awesome thing, there's so many holes underneath in different infrastructural parts that you find yourself diving into. I'm going to have to go build this thing first before we can build this thing, before we can build this thing. And that's cool because a lot of those holes are getting filled in, but there's also a lot of room for us to improve and places for us to do a better job. And we just need more developers, right? And I think that the scaffolding that you talked about, it's basically a repo that you can fork. And I've been making lots of decentralized apps for the last couple of years, and it's sort of all the things that I keep reusing, I built into this, and hooks for getting your balance and talking to a smart contract and loading a value into storage and having that as part of your app. Just little things that you as a developer trying to build a product on Ethereum will want to be able to rapidly prototype. And the environment basically lands you in where you're just writing a little bit of Solidity and you're kind of figuring out, how does Solidity work? But you can also test your assumptions because there's a front end that comes up with it that's almost like the form for Etherscan. If you're super elite and you go talk to smart contracts using Etherscan, it's basically just like a web form. That's sort of what the scaffolding starts you out with. And it really is just scaffolding because eventually you want to carve that out and build a UI. But in the very beginning, when you clone down ScaffoldETH, you can just basically kind of test your assumptions and write some Solidity and then poke at that Solidity and play around with it over in the front end in a nice little form. And then once you get the contract and your idea kind of more solidified, then you can start building UI elements and buttons and all the stuff that a good app has. That was a very long-winded answer to, and also ETH.BUILD. ETH.BUILD is a great educational tool, right? You can kind of also test your assumptions, poke around at things and wire things up. And there's a great kind of set of videos there for anytime anybody's even a little bit shaky on what a public-private key pair is and how that works, I'm go check it out. There's this episode on signed messages and you can learn all sorts of stuff. It's bad. I got the streamer set up now. Back then I had really bad audio and my setup for recording videos wasn't great. So you'll have to brave some bad audio, but there's some good content there on ETH.BUILD in terms of educational and kind of learning more about Ethereum.
Awesome. Yeah, I can see your professional microphone and your camera.
Isn't
Really
this
good.
nice?
Yeah, the production quality.
Little
Nice.
bit.
So
I
how much
It comes-
time and effort do you think like something like scaffolding takes of the new developers?
I have seen a lot of like 2-week hackathon projects that I could have built in a day with ScaffoldETH, because it just takes care of a lot of the underlying things. I think that's a tough metric to go with, because it's like it's weighted, it's skewed depending on how good a developer is, right? But I think that it does take a lot of it off of the developer at first, and I do try to like provide as much as I can. Like I've got my Infura keys in there, right? And those obviously aren't going to work for a new developer for very long, but hopefully you can get in there and kind of poke around, and then as soon as you start to level up and learn the tools, it should graduate you into being a pro ETH developer eventually.
Right. And other than this, you've also been like personally onboarding developers, like with one-on-one conversations.
Yeah, it's been a lot of fun, man. It was kind of like a spur of the moment thing. I was just like, I should just try this. And it's been a lot of fun. So basically we do a couple hour-long sessions, or like 45-minute sessions, but it's just like you have ScaffoldETH cloned down by the time I get there, so we're not worried about installing things. We just dive right into that part I was talking about, where it's like we'll change some solidity and we'll see it in the front end. And so it's been a lot of fun kind of taking a decent Web 2 developer and showing them like the ahas in Ethereum, right? Like we like underflow a uint8, which is silly and easy. And, like this is not like heady programming, but it's cool to test assumptions, right? We start with a uint8 and we started at 1 and we underflow it back to 255. And we get them thinking about, you got to be cognizant of what those bits are doing under there, right? And then we kind of create an address owner, right? Like basic solidity stuff, but we get to play around with how like that address is like a very important actor within solidity, and how you can call like .balance and .transfer on an address. So yeah, the ScaffoldETH sessions have been just like a lot of fun for me, and I think they've been useful for new developers coming in, but it's also kind of good for me at a meta level to like figure out what their dumb questions are and see if we can do a better job of answering those kind of in the content that a new developer starts to devour when they go down the rabbit hole.
I would also love to hear your thoughts on like the MetaView of the onboarding. For example, do you think the Ethereum Foundation itself should do like, because for example, these so-called Ethereum killers like have this whole departments that are specifically focused on onboarding developers and getting them to fuck off of Ethereum and things like that. Well,
I've been in like
really
meetings. Yeah, so I can't speak for the Ethereum Foundation, right? I'm just like a builder in Ethereum. They're definitely like supporting me and keeping me going, but like we're slightly unaffiliated, right? But I would say that the onboarding, you're right. Like we do see. I was in a meeting last week with like 6 near dudes that are all like trying to figure out how they can get developer onboarding, and we talked through like, well, like my idea is basically we're looking for like product prototypers, so I'm building this product prototyping scaffolding to get people straight to prototyping their products, right? I don't think Near is like an Ethereum killer, right? I think that basically it could be very helpful, just like xDAI is. We've got a long tail of people that are priced out of Ethereum right now, and there's a market for them. There's a market for their transactions, and so I think that like Near can basically help the stuff more than hurt, right? If you're considering them like an ETH killer, anything EVM compatible for me is really awesome, and they aren't, but I think they're kind of working on a bridge that kind of works like that. But yes, yeah, exactly. The original question is, okay, Near has all these dev relation guys and they're working really hard on it. I think that probably could be a great thing for Ethereum too. Like, I don't think that would hurt to have that, but it's kind of like that. Maybe that's not exactly the biggest priority for the EF, or maybe it is. I don't know what their priority is. They're empowering me to go talk to developers one-on-one, right? Whether I'm, and there's probably lots of me, but whether I'm as good as 8 near dudes, I doubt it. There's some really smart and creative guys there, right? So yeah, we could always use more people doing dev relations and building and stuff. Obviously, it doesn't scale for me to be one-on-one with developers, but it's been awesome, and I'm going to keep doing it and learning from it and kind of use that to hopefully guide, guide the scale up of more developers coming in, hopefully, and hopefully we have better content for them. They don't have to look at my ugly mug, and they can just get to building cool stuff.
Doing God's work. But Consensus had an initiative like focusing on this, the 1 million developers, which I don't know, how has that been going? Do you have any updates on that?
I don't know. I mean, like, yeah, it's hard to measure that kind of stuff. I think that was kind of a meme, right? Like, it's a meme, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, we see like more developers coming in when certain things happen, and I don't know if it's market stuff or what it is, but we may have 1 million developers and it may have nothing to do with the 1 million developers initiative, or maybe it does. It's hard to measure, right? I think we have to get out there and get good content to developers. I think there's like this good versus great thing going on, where a good example, and I'll be kind of opinionated, I guess, the difference between Truffle and Biddler, right? Truffle and Biddler both compile your contracts. They're set up similar. Biddler even like did a good job of making it look like Truffle, but there's just a difference in the developer experience between the two products. One of them is a lot easier to use. One of them is a lot easier to install. One of them feels like it was built for developers, and the other one feels like it was built to get the job done. In terms of like our efforts for developer relations, I hope that we can pick the great ones, right? Like even if there are good things, like are there great ones that like are the good things bringing down the stuff, right? We need some great both DevRel people, DevRel tutorials. We just have to kind of stay away from the good. I mean, like the good gets us there for a while, right? But I think it's time now for some great products and some great user experiences and some great developer experiences. I think we are kind of at a shift. I've been saying this for months now, but we are at a shift where developers are going to have a better experience on Ethereum, and it's already super complicated, and you're already trying to figure out a bunch of things. And when you're doing that on a shaky environment, it's just frustrating and awful, right? Like you need a very good foundation to be able to understand this stuff, because it's already pretty heady as it is.
And these pieces of the puzzle are all included in the scaffolding, or what's
I mean, there's there's always more. That's a good question. I think some infrastructure stuff is still lacking a little bit, right? Like and all this stuff is so cutting edge, right? Like I tried to make a ScaffoldETH like deployment where we deployed to IPFS and then wrote the IPNS, that's a rough one, to the ENS domain, and it just like wasn't working at the time. Like you like all this stuff is so new that like there are lots of holes still in things that could be built and things that could be better, but things are getting better, and that's exciting. I would say, yeah, we're definitely not, it's definitely not perfect. Go try to build a dApp right now and you'll find 6 frustrating things, and if you attack one of those frustrating things, then the next guy will only have 5 frustrating things. But people are still building awesome shit too, right? Like regardless of how hard it is, some really cool stuff is being built.
What are the biggest problems?
The biggest problems from developer standpoint, I think it's like, it's weird. It's more like the context and the product market fit type stuff, right? Like I think there's a lot of developers that are kind of on a wide orbit of Ethereum that sort of get what it is and sort of get that they could build something, but they're not exactly sure like what that thing is that they should build that could be awesome. I think that there's kind of like these 3 layers that we need to communicate better. And it's sort of like, there's like builders, and then there's like things to do. And then there's like this kind of top level like funding, sort of like ecosystem support, things that needs to get built, and then a bunch of developers. And if we can connect those better, we and you'll talk about this too, right? Like community and like raid guild stuff, and bringing those developers together is a very important thing to kind of make that whole system all communicate and flow properly.
Right. This kind of connects to one of the questions I also wanted to ask you. You build a lot of like random shit, like it's seemingly completely unrelated, like a lot of experiments. How do you come up with these ideas?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes it's just something that's fun. Sometimes it's like what can be the most high leverage. A lot of times it's like setting up some kind of combo move, right? Like I want to figure out how to make a minimum viable DEX, right? So I go to the Uniswap stuff, I figure out Solidity, I find, I think one of my buddies, Philippe, PHABC, you know, he's a smart dude. He turned the Viper contracts into Solidity contracts. And so it's just like, there's a lot of exploration and a lot of dead ends, but I happened to find that and kind of clean it up and make a minimum viable DEX. And just by making that, then it was like, okay, now I can kind of exchange tokens with this minimum viable DEX over on xDAI. What can I build on top of that? And so we bridged in moons from Reddit and then put an exchange between xmoons and xDAI. Like sort of this like testnet token now has, you know, you can exchange value for mainnet DAI through this kind of sidechain thing. But it was totally just like experimenting and finding cool things. And I think now like that is inspiring kind of what can we do next? Basically, if we have exchanges, like the next thing would be, it would be rad if we had like just like minimum viable lending over on xDAI. So we could show off, you know, you could basically put in $1 and borrow 75 cents of some coin that is pegged to the value of something else. Like we were talking about xETH the other day and how fun that would be to have like an ETH oracle on xDAI that's pegged to the price of ETH on mainnet. So you lock up ETH to get DAI, you lock up DAI to get xDAI, and then you lock up xDAI to get xETH, which is basically tied to that original asset somehow, mostly just for educational purposes, right? I feel like a lot of the inspiration and the stuff that I go after is just like either those missing holes that we were talking about, or just like, that would be cool, that would be fun to build, let's do this for the lols. And that's where like the X-Men exchange and a lot of stuff came from. Right now, I think a lot of the builds I'm doing are meant to show off how ScaffoldETH can work and show other developers like, hey, this is you can build a product with this, I promise. And that would be like Nifty Ink, or here in a couple days or weeks, I'm gonna launch something that's kind of like the burner wallet. So it'll be like an instant wallet that's built with ScaffoldETH. So it's kind of like how the burner wallet's like dark and orange and scary. The instant wallet's supposed to be happy and magical and light, but it's basically a wallet just like the burner wallet, but built with ScaffoldETH in like 4 hours. You can just sit down and build a burner wallet with ScaffoldETH very easily.
All right, that's cool.
What about you, man? Come on, let's have some tips for like community building. What's like how do you enhance the superpowers of people in your community to kind of like run autonomously?
You just have to like give them a lot of praise and encouragement. Like, come on, what do you want to build? Come on, do it. Let's do it. Oh, fuck, that was great.
A little poking.
Good job, dude.
Yep.
Yeah. And then you post, oh, this dude built something really cool. Go follow him.
Heck yeah. I agree. Like good support, a little poking, a little inspiration. We all need that, right? I've been finding like setting up for the second ScaffoldETH session, I kind of want them to have a little bit of homework done. And I know that like people procrastinate and I procrastinate too. So I start like setting up that second date like ahead of time, like, okay, we're going to have another Zoom session. Start thinking about building that decentralized bank we talked about, just kind of like nudging people to go that extra distance. But you're exactly right. I think that like when something awesome comes out, or even like praising effort over at first praising effort over results, but then you kind of make a transition to praising results, right? You can't always praise effort, but at the beginning, someone's just trying to get context and figure it out.
Yeah, this reminds me of the like, there's two gaps that I think that should be filled somehow. The first one is like the people getting into crypto that are like, I'm not a developer, so I have no idea what I could do. Like, they just don't know where to get started. and then there are the developers who, okay, I got the skills, but they don't really know what the space is missing, like what are the useful things that should be built, and so they build like the 50th wallet or the 10 NFT card trading game.
And that's great. So
Like
that's
that.
great. First of all, like they should build those things to get context of like how it works and where it goes wrong and where it falls apart. I think the problem is they become married to the idea. Like the 13th wallet that I just built is gonna be the wallet that everyone's gonna download, right? And I think that's the key. Like, yes, build the wallet, build the NFT platform, like explore these areas and find how it works, but don't be married to that thing, right? Like keep trying and keep building, and that's what gives you the context. Sorry, like total tangent, but it's good to go down that road.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, a lot of experiments. Yeah, and the first one, the way we're trying to solve it is by building out these skill trees so that people get an easy
like level up and
yeah, the easy overview, like, okay, we could go the design way, the developing way, or any other way, and just get an overview of what are the things that you could be doing and the things you could learn.
It would be good, kind of, this is a meta tangent also, but it would be good to have like if you guys run into Web 2 developers that are looking for the Web 3 upgrade, like send them to me. Give me a couple hours with them and I'll send them back to you and they'll be Web 3 ready.
Awesome. Yeah, that's great. But yeah, I asked Yeller about the raid guild. Do they have some people interested in that? And he said yes. And yeah,
I'll bug him. I'm always bugging Yeller about it. I'll bug him again about it for sure.
Good. Maybe let's get some xDAI.
Okay, yeah. Let's talk about. So, have you tried Nifty Ink yet? Nifty Ink is a fun onboarding into xDAI. You should pull up Nifty Ink. So it's like an art platform that uses a ton of magic, burner wallets, meta transactions, side chains, and message bridges to give you a Web 2 like experience. So you land on Nifty Ink, you can ink some drawing, you give it a name and then some kind of limit, like 1 out of 10 or something like that, or 2 for 2 or 1 of 1, right? You hit ink and it takes your meta transaction and tries to submit it. Sometimes it fails because we have throughput issues right now, but basically we're paying everybody's transactions. You just sign something and then it's cryptographically backed by that burner wallet that's in that session right there. So you can open this up on like mobile Safari, go to Nifty Ink, draw something, and it'll actually get inked on xDAI and we pay the gas. But what the xDAI is sort of like a side chain. It's sort of like a quick, cheap way to basically buy and sell and mint these NFTs, but the NFTs eventually can be bridged to mainnet. And the fact that it's backed by mainnet means that kind of like over on xDAI, what you're selling is more like the option to mint on mainnet. So artists can get in, they don't have to know anything about blockchain. They can draw something cool. And this is meant to be like a tutorial, like please like fork this code kind of stuff. Like Nifty Ink was built with ScaffoldETH, but it's meant to be like a demo of how you could build an art platform, like fork this, make a glitch art platform, fork this and make a generative art platform, right? The thing is, an artist can get in, they can make art without having to know about blockchain. It's still cryptographically backed. The artists can still make money and it goes like right into a burner wallet on their phone. And it's a good experience. It's meant to be like a tutorial. You should, are you able to ink anything? Did you try it out?
Nope.
You should.
And right now it's still just like you can't upload a photo. You can only straight.
Exactly. Yep.
How do you say ink?
INK. Yeah. You can even do NFT.ink. What's that? Yeah, NFT.ink or Nifty.ink.
Oh yeah, I saw this. And yeah, you told me the other day about that ability to sell the minting rights. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's like the rights to minting on mainnet. And we didn't really discover that. So we built it for mainnet first, and obviously we realized that, oh wait, this isn't gonna work. Like it's way too expensive. People are way priced out of mainnet. So then we built like this 2-chain solution, but we noticed that without a bridge between the two chains, people are able to front run artists from the side chain to the main chain. So if like Vitalik got in there and drew something awesome, someone could be watching for that, I guess, and they could push it to mainnet ahead of him, because the art goes to IPFS signed by the artist, but there's like an on-chain thing too. It has to take that and put it on-chain. And by putting it on xDAI first and having it backed by the bridge, then it's locked there and can only be upgraded if the artist sells it. But what we noticed is if we had two chains, we could front run, and people could write something from the side chain to the mainnet without the artist's permission, even though it would be backed by the artist. It's still like the bridge basically sets up the backstop of ETH. And you know that if I own this piece over on xDAI, I can buy and sell it quickly. But then I know eventually if I want, I have the rights to mint it on ETH. It's like you have options over here and you can exercise them onto ETH when you want to, but you can keep them on the low value chain for fun and profit, ? And that's cool. Yeah. Another thing built with ScaffoldETH, check out the instant wallet too. So it's like instantwallet.io is going to be, it's not launched yet because I am still working on it, but it's basically like, you can open that up on your phone. It's going to do the same thing that ScaffoldETH does, where it generates an account for you on page load. And then it has like this, like basically QR. The very first burner wallet I built looked just like this, where it had just like this QR. It's just like a big QR code right there, and then a send button, right? And you can just hit the send button, shoot someone else's burner wallet or instant wallet. I'm trying to make the name a little friendlier, right? There's a bunch of other things built with ScaffoldETH too, if you check out the repo. But even in the second session, like it backstops to xDAI so well, because in the second session, after we've done a little solidity, the next thing we do is like take you and deploy you to a production network, so you can kind of like have the full circle. I can write a smart contract, I can update the app, I can deploy everything to xDAI, and then I can push the app to some production like static server or even like Surge, and have like this app that's ready for everyone to interact with. We do that by like within 2 hours of starting the first clone of ScaffoldETH.
Two more about xDAI. Like it's been around for a long time, but this is now it's finally getting usage now that the transactions on Ethereum are just.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
All the non-DeFi use cases.
Yep, I think that. Yeah, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to ask, like, what do you think are the biggest obstacles for people to getting over to xDAI from Ethereum?
So technically, it's really easy, right? Basically, it's an exact copy. It's cheap. It's fast. As a developer, you basically just point that bat signal. You know, when I was talking about going to a production network, you've got that pointed at Rinkeby, you've got that pointed at Ropsten, and then eventually you pointed at mainnet. Just stop by xDAI on the way, right? Get it tested on Rinkeby or whatever, deploy it to xDAI and test it there where it's cheap and fast, but you know there can be hundreds of dollars, and then you can upgrade it to mainnet next. And by having it on xDAI, you kind of have this development pipeline where people can really mess around for low value but with skin in the game. So to answer the question though, the hardest part is probably, and we're seeing this with Nifty Ink, it's freaking MetaMask. MetaMask doesn't let you set a freaking custom RPC. So I have to tell every artist that comes in here that makes money that, I mean, they could just use their burner wallet. There's a burner wallet right there, but like, I mean, private keys and local storage, we need something more secure. So the next step up is to get MetaMask. And once you have MetaMask, you have to go to the network and you have to go to custom RPC and you have to put in HTTPS DAI.POA.network, and then you have to hit save. And then finally you can talk to xDAI. Like why that isn't an option, it's frustrating. But that is by far the worst part about xDAI right now is the MetaMask interaction.
And why do you think that isn't an option?
Well, I mean, like it's hard. You can't pick favorites, right? This is a decentralized network. If it's kind of going back to the same thing with the EF and why they're not, you know, like why not 6 guys? Like because there's a huge signal there. Like if MetaMask signals that xDAI is the side chain, that's probably not the best option either, right? We need to be decentralized and we need to have lots of options. And I think Matic is a good example of that. There's another like xDAI, there's another EVM. There's probably many EVM compatible side chains that are ready to go right now that people aren't using. Now, however, on an argument to that, like composability is huge, right? If we could actually all signal one side chain and get everyone over there, there would be a ton of composability. So there's kind of like dueling arguments here about like, let's give everyone a fair cut and have a decentralized network and have that stability because of that, or because of the composability, let's all dive on this one chain and screw around over here. And I think,
Right.
you know, what if MetaMask adds Matic and xDAI? Like, who's going to be the next guy that's mad, and how do we figure out a better system there? And maybe it should just be like the developer has a button that says, "Hey, xDAI, would you like to add a new network?" And they like basically I onboard an artist by saying, "Hey, you know, we're about to add xDAI to your wallet. Is that okay?" And you hit accept, and now xDAI is in your network, right? And I think Pedro's working on something like that. It's just getting standards through, and these projects that are like pretty big now, like for us, they're big, right? Within the ecosystem, MetaMask is a very big thing. And when MetaMask makes a change, it signals, right? And there's a lot of money moving around where it's part of the protocol. So every little signal is good and bad.
Right. So yeah, as soon as they would add X, they would be okay. So why not Matic? So
exactly.
Why not this? Why not that? Yeah.
Right. And I'm sure that I sent Dan Finlay a Twitter just DM the other day, like, gosh, this is bad. But you know what? I totally understand where he's at, right? He can't pick favorites. We just need a better system that allows for a decentralized ecosystem, but making that UX better, right? That the user experience of having to put in a custom RPC is just not something a human being should have to go through to be able to move art around.
And what's with the change of license with MetaMask?
I don't know anything about that. Yeah, I don't know.
Right. Once you have MetaMask, like how easy is it to get Ether from mainnet to xDAI to make it?
Sure. Yeah, sure. I think so. Usually what I do is I send people to the burner wallet, right? On xDAI.io, there's a nice little exchange button. So you can send ETH or DAI straight to your burner wallet, and it will, let's see if this comes up. So you can send ETH or DAI. Like I can hit receive right here, and I could send ETH to that address. Whoa. And then if I go into the exchange, then I can move that ETH north into DAI and then into xDAI. And I mean, that process is available in a lot of different ways, right? So to go ETH to DAI, there's a lot of ways to do that, but this is just using like Uniswap. So you can swap ETH to DAI pretty easily, and then you basically lock up your DAI and get xDAI over on another network. So almost everybody already has DAI. You have to lock it up in the bridge to get it in xDAI, and the app itself should probably handle that. But there's also a bridge to do that UI, and it's, you know, not the best UX to have to go somewhere else and put in some DAI to get some xDAI to go back to something else to interact with it.
But so you need to actually go to xDAI, like there's no like exit on xDAI. So you can be on xDAI but stay in Ether.
Oh, right. Yeah, no. So xDAI is that's kind of what we're talking about with the xETH, right? There is no xETH. Yeah. But basically if you're operating in xDAI, you are kind of shielded from ETH fluctuations to some point because you're in DAI, and DAI should be pretty stable. So it's kind of like if you want to be in ETH but also using xDAI, just send like $2 to xDAI and you'll have enough to like deploy thousands of contracts.
Our problem here is that like we have the seed market that's running on Uniswap on the mainnet, and it's like it's just very expensive. Like you have the interaction with Uniswap currently costs like $50.
Yes, it does.
So yeah, we're talking about getting it over to xDAI, but then it's the whole issue of people don't have really xDAI ready in their wallets. And even if they did, that would mean that we then have to launch the seed market with seed to die, not seed to eat, which we had so far. And I didn't even know that's a problem. I thought that there is xETH, so this is like an additional problem.
xDAI basically is the xETH, but it's not like xDAI is the native currency. Like xDAI is the ETH, like what ETH is to Ethereum, xDAI is to xDAI, but there isn't something that fluctuates with the price of ETH on xDAI.
Right.
So wait, what is it? So it's a seed. So what's it's a token that you've deployed, or what are the mechanics here? Maybe we could talk through a little bit more and talk about how maybe that could be, applied on xDAI. Because sometimes it's just a different mental model. Yeah. How does it work?
The seed is the metagame token. So we use source credit. We use source credit to mint tokens for the contributors, and then those contributors get their tokens, which are sold through the Uniswap to the people that want to support metagame with money instead of labor.
Cool.
And
yeah. So
we have that, like the seed market is like the critical component of metagame, so we can exchange from people that contribute labor to people that contribute money. And yeah.
So, well, that's the thing. I think that what you're talking about, especially like going from source credit to giving the developer tokens, like that's something you probably want to do. Like you want to run like a cron job every day that hands out a little bit of tokens to everybody, and you just can't do that on mainnet right now. But if you take, so you want what you have right now because it gives liquidity to that token, right? So you basically, you want that mainnet Uniswap exchange, and you want there to be some liquidity for your token in terms of going to USD or whatever. But what you can do is have that token bridge into a side chain where the security risks are not as good as mainnet, but the climate in terms of gas prices and transaction speeds are a lot better. If your developers, as long as you're not paying one of your developers $2 million for some source cred thing, like you can get away with small amounts of value on that side chain, and those validators and bridge operators aren't going to like all collude to steal your $30 that basically is priced out of mainnet right now. But you want to be able to chip away and give developers a small amount for committing code, I think is what it is, right? So as they commit code, you want to send tokens. That is a perfect use case for xDAI, because you're sending you're paying a fraction of a penny to send a guy $6 that is totally priced out of Ethereum right now, but it's some small commit or something like that. And you do that, hundreds of times a day. That still is only going to cost you a few cents on xDAI. And then if that token is bridged, they can wait for that money to accumulate. Oh, now I have $400 or $500. All right, I'm going to bridge that through and exchange it in the exchange. But at first, I can use it over here. And then if I'm a developer and I'm building something and I need something else built, I can take some of that coin and put it in, towards some other project and someone else helping me out, right? Like the whole market can kind of exchange and move quickly over here on a low value network, and then as it accumulates, he can or she can bridge out and get USD for that when needed, right? Like having it backstop to Ethereum is important enough. As long as they can get through that bridge when they need, you can do lots of fun stuff with the low value chain. Does that make sense?
Right.
Like
yeah,
I would do exactly what you have. Yep. I would keep the market on the mainnet. I would have your UI able to talk to that, but then I would set something up where you can bridge those tokens through. And if you just Google AMB, like arbitrary message bridge, you'll see how we're doing it with Nifty Ink, but you can send any token back and forth. So that's what you set up, is you'll set up a token on xDAI that represents the mainnet token. And then you can build all this cool source cred, scripts and the neat UI, the cool stuff. And it can be, you click a button and 5 seconds later, you've made the transaction and it costs barely anything. And it's great for moving around low value. And also like this adds a composability layer too, right? By having that on mainnet or on xDAI, now there's a bunch of other people that may like fork that and use that, or have, like a low value kind of market system for like issues that need to be getting like taken care of. I'm talking about those 3 layers, right? Where there's the developers here and there's stuff that needs to get done here. Like if that layer right there runs on xDAI, it makes a lot of sense. Money is still at the protocol, but it's cheaper and faster.
But the thing is that that works already on the source code layer. Like there's this off-chain ledger that you can use to transfer the seeds before they are minted between the users for boosting different initiatives. So we
Perfect.
don't need the we don't need the xDAI for that step. It's just the seed market that's the main problem. But yeah, I guess there's no good solution to that yet. I
Well,
mean,
I
we could
mean,
have it on xDAI, but yeah, the problem is that
yeah,
it adds a lot of friction to the people that want to buy seeds. Like if someone has
right.
Ether and wants to support metagame by buying some seeds, putting it on xDAI would just require too many steps for them to buy it.
I mean, you can there like same thing I did with the minimum viable exchange. You could technically have a Uniswap on xDAI that swaps between xDAI and some token, and they could get xDAI value there. But still, like if we're talking about going to USD, there's still some steps there to get them all the way to, their bank account.
Yeah, and they still need to get first they need to get their Ether over to xDAI. And there's the additional problem that I didn't even know that's here, that you have to then use the DAI. There's no XETH yet.
Right. Yep. I would argue though that the seed thing that you're doing off chain that's using the signatures is kind of a band-aid. And what you can do is take your EVM compatible stuff and just have it on xDAI, and something that wouldn't make sense on mainnet can exist on xDAI and burn tons of gas, right? Like it's okay to build a to-do list in the EVM on xDAI because it's not expensive there, right? Like it actually makes sense to have a to-do list there, and then have a market that exists on xDAI for those to-do list items to get checked off. Like that like mental model just hasn't been here because we've always sort of been thinking about how we deal with mainnet gas. But if that's not a concern and you can still have your entire EVM stack, you can do some fun things where like there's no composability with your seeds probably, right? There's not other developers building, like whatever this L2 solution is, it's probably just like a signature scheme. There's not other developers all picking up these and kind of coordinating how you could like create a market for those, like a third-party market, right? And I think we'll start to see that kind of stuff show up on xDAI as more developers come in.
Yeah, that would be cool. And do I have more questions for you? We went over way back from the onboarding to scaffolding to xDAI and whatnot.
Awesome.
So, yeah,
if you want to do a ScaffoldETH session with me sometime, let's set it up too. If you're interested in seeing the tools. I know you're not a developer, but I'm telling you, if we go through, like, do you have Git? Can you do a Git clone?
No.
Okay. That's the first step. I gotta get you to be able to do a Git clone first, and then you can do some ScaffoldETH magic.
I only installed the GitHub app on my computer like 2 or 3 weeks ago.
But see, that means that means. See, then you can. That's all you got to be able to do. If you can clone down ScaffoldETH, there's a couple commands to run, but basically, it sounds scary, but it sets you up with a great local environment where you can just change some things in a really, really simple smart contract and then see what that does in the front end. Going back to like the source credit, the to-do list, right? A 3 out of 10 web developer can probably make a to-do list on xDAI with ScaffoldETH, which is kind of the exciting thing for me, is that we're going to see a lot of cool little things being built on a chain that you do have skin in the game, but it's just a little bit of skin in the game. And we have enough that it's worth it to participate, but you're not going to get huge burned. I hope.
So you're
not investment advice.
Any development experience to play with it?
Yeah, exactly. You should try. You have to have Git installed, and I think you have to have Yarn installed or Node installed, but it like takes you through how to do that in the repo.
No, I have no excuse not to do it.
You see, exactly. It's the inspiration, right? There's part of this is just about like nudging people along. But seriously, set up a session. And basically the way it works is, if you're comfortable, you share your screen, right? So I set you as the host, you share your screen, and we set up your local environment. And then I just show you how to like iterate a little bit and test some assumptions. And then you're off to the races on your own. And then in a few weeks, we kind of come back together to see what we can build. But even if you're not a developer, it might be fun to get you just exposed to it just so you can see it.
All right, that would be cool.
Cool, man.
Better get something
Thanks
going.
thanks for having me. This has been
Yeah,
fun.
thanks for coming. Yeah.
Yeah, for
Thanks.
sure. Let me know if I need to RT anything or whatever. Hit me up on Twitter. Is that where we have a chat, or do we have Telegram? We probably have Discord too, huh?
Both.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, we have all the platforms.
All of the chats. Awesome. Well,
Yeah,
hit me up
and,
there, man.
I'll put some links in the show notes. So like ScaffoldETH, build.
Heck yeah,
Google,
that would be
what is
great. ETH.BUILD and
the
ScaffoldETH.
Insta wallet, Nifty Ink.
Yes.
the-
Oh, probably
the
not.
loss.
Instant Wall is supposed to be a secret. So like
Okay,
maybe not even put that in the show notes. I guess if someone watches it, they should go check
Maybe
it out
shouldn't
'cause it's
even
fun and easy
mention
to
it in
use.
the
Yeah, who
podcast.
cares? It doesn't matter. Same thing with Nifty Ink. We tried not to launch it and it was like, oh, now people are drawing on it. I guess this is our contract. These are our contracts.
It launched itself.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. Thanks for having me, man.
Yeah, thank you
Let
very
me
much.
know. Let me know if you want to have a session sometime. It'd be fun.
Sounds good. All right, thank you.
All right.
Yeah, I'm trying to
Happy
get
Monday.
Some mentees.
Yeah, mint some nifties. Yeah. Happy Monday.
All right, so.
You believe it's morning, I'm alive, but that's the last thing on my mind. You believe it's morning.